This week in South Florida, the BB&T Center is home to the Florida Panthers and also the venue for concerts and other non-hockey events. Those events make money for the Panthers organization, but the hockey team loses money big time, $20 to $30 million a year, they say. Now, the Panthers want to rewrite their contract and make Broward County dip into hotel bed taxes to the tune of $70 million. We'll talk about it this morning with Panthers President Michael Yormark and Broward Commissioner Tim Ryan. Plus, your letters and my personal perspective about police overkill during the visit this week of Vice President Joe Biden. The stories people are talking about this week in South Florida. Good morning. Glad you could join us. Our focus today is tax dollars subsidizing sports stadiums, specifically the BB&T Center in Sunrise, which is where the Florida Panthers play. Now, the Panthers want $86 million in tourist tax dollars to help them operate in the black at the BB&T Center. That facility was built in 1998 for $185 million. Here's how the debt was structured at that time until right now. Broward County pays $8 million a year. The state kicks in $2 million, and the Panthers pay $4.5 million for the construction cost, as well as property taxes and insurance. And here is the deal proposed by the Panthers. It's changed a bit in the last couple of days. As we understand it, the Panthers want $86 million in hotel bed taxes over the next 14 years. The team also wants Broward to pick up the tab for property taxes and insurance costs over $1 million. The bottom line here, should tax dollars, tourist tax dollars, be used to help a for-profit company, a professional sports franchise, to be able to operate at a profit? Well, let's take it up with our guests who see this issue quite differently, I think. Michael Yormark is president of the Florida Panthers. He says the team is a big tourist draw and that it makes good sense to use tourist tax dollars to pay off the team's debt at the BB&T Center. Broward County Commissioner Tim Ryan from District 7 doesn't think it's such a good idea. Commissioner Ryan was elected to the commission in 2012. Previously, he served for 8 years in the State House of Representatives. To both of you, good morning.
Good morning.
Great to have you come in.
Thank you.
Michael Yormark, make your best case here. Why do you think the use of tourist tax dollars to help your company operate in the black makes sense for taxpayers?
Michael, before I get to that answer, I would like to take a moment before we start.
Well, we're starting, but go ahead.
To express my deepest sympathies to our friend Pompano Beach Mayor Lamar Fisher.
Oh, yeah.
Lamar's mother was killed and his father critically injured in a terrible car accident this weekend. Right. Our thoughts and prayers are with Lamar and his family this morning.
Yeah.
In answer to
excuse me, I would simply say we quite agree it was a tragic incident to have the mayor lose his mother.
Yes, it was.
All right, now on to the question at hand.
Thank you. You know, I think this is about a crown jewel here in Broward County. In 1996, as you know, the Board of Broward County Commissioners voted on deciding to create a state-of-the-art sports and entertainment facility here in Broward County. This has become a crown jewel here in our community, supported by the local residents, those who come to concerts and shows and watch Florida Panther hockey. Yeah. It's important for us to maintain this facility. It's important for us to grow this facility, just like the seaport, just like the airport, just like the convention center. Our community, in many ways, has been identified over the last 15 years through the emergence of this facility and this hockey team.
All right, well, Tim Ryan, let me ask you to weigh in here. Obviously, I don't think you would disagree with Mr. Yormark that the BB&T Center is an important facility for people in Broward County. But once again, the issue is, should millions of dollars of hotel bed tax money be used to help make his company profitable?
Well, we're not sure whether the request for an additional $4.5 million per year will actually make them profitable, because we're told that the Panthers are losing $20 to $30 million per year. Right. Certainly it will curtail the amount of losses, but it's up to the operators and owners of the Panthers and the facility to be able to turn things around. I think that the county wants to be a willing partner, but in a partnership we're going to need to work where whatever benefits are provided to the Panthers, there's some corresponding benefit or ability for the county to do better.
All right, so what does the
finances.
county get back for its investment?
Well, let me just make one additional comment to what the Vice Mayor just said. He's absolutely right. This organization has been losing $30 million a year. We've talked about 4 different buckets that contribute ultimately to the success of this organization. We, the operators, have to bear the burden of the majority of that $30 million ask. What we're asking as it relates to our proposal to Broward County is to help us, is to assist us get a little bit closer to where we need to be. And Michael, you mentioned an organization that wants profits. The goal of our organization, the goal of Mr. Viola and his family, are not to pull profits out of the organization. We want to create a sustainable business model that enables the building and the team to be healthy for the betterment of this community.
Yeah.
That's the goal here.
All right, well, that is your goal. Let's sort of get down to brass tacks. So the tourist tax dollars that come in generally, mostly, the huge majority, are generated by hotels and over on the eastern end of the county.
Yes.
And those hotel operators late this week at the Tourist Development Council were pretty lukewarm to this. You know, they have money set aside for beach renourishment, don't they, Tim?
For beach renourishment and to advertise Broward as a tourist destination. Right. Those are the 2 primary purposes of the tourist development tax. Now, when the 2-cent tax was enacted, it specifically provided that the 2 pennies would be used in part for the financing of the bonds for the construction of the arena. So it's been well known since 1998 that some portion of the bed tax was going to go to retire these bonds.
Yeah, I believe at that meeting, Mr. Yormark, you said at some point, or maybe your attorney did, that the BB&T Center deserves all of the tourist tax dollars.
Actually, that's not accurate. What we said
what is accurate?
What we did say is that we deserve more of the 2-cent bed tax. Let me just read something from the local ordinance that was passed in 1996. The local ordinance that was passed in 1996 for the sole purpose of providing funding for this arena stated very specifically that this 2-cent bed tax was to assist in the payment of the debt service on the bonds issued to finance the construction, reconstruction, or renovation of a professional sports franchise facility. It did not mention beach renourishment. It did not mention specifically tourism. What we're asking for is for the $8 million that currently is contributed towards the debt service to be increased to $12.5 million. That still leaves approximately $5 million today, based on the $17 million that is collected, to fund beach renourishment and to fund other initiatives in Broward County, which, by the way, we really do support.
Let me ask you, I don't know how sports franchises are managed. Most of them make money. Why are the Panthers losing $30 million a year?
Well, let me just say this. Most professional sports franchises do not make money, and that's a fact. One of the reasons that the organization, and when I say organization, I'm referring to the BB&T Center and the Florida Panthers as a consolidated company loses money, is that our current operating agreement is not competitive with other like franchises or other like venues.
It's not as good, forgive me, as the Marlins Stadium in Miami or the AAA?
It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do. Excuse me. It has nothing to do with those 2 facilities. What I'm referring to, quite frankly, is the changing landscape in the South Florida marketplace when this lease was first done in 1998. As an example, in 1998, there were 6 competing venues for content in this marketplace, concerts and shows. Today, Michael, there are 19 facilities. The landscape has changed.
Sure.
Let me give you another example. Based on the original estimates that were put together in 1996 for this arena, the expenses currently are 44% higher than what was anticipated, led by our insurance.
Yeah, but if I went to go see Billy Joel 5 years ago, it might have cost me $125. I think the scale on the tickets for the Billy Joel concert were in the hundreds of dollars.
They weren't actually. The highest ticket price, face value, was $119.
Well, good luck getting $119
$119.
I mean, you got to go to a scalper. I mean, they somehow...
Not a scalper. if you went to Ticketmaster, you purchased that seat for $119.
Well, if you could, all right. But I think my point is that the economy has changed in every which way. And, you know, don't you make money on Billy Joel or the other concerts and events?
Actually, I'm glad that you mentioned Billy Joel, because in order to maintain the current status of this facility as it relates to our competitors, we actually made a guarantee to Billy Joel. That guarantee cost $4 million for 2 nights. And actually, Michael, we lost money. So you might ask, why did we do it? We did it to protect the building. We did it to protect our suite holders. We did it to protect the image of this entertainment facility.
Yeah. Tim Moran, I think I've got to come back to my first question, and that is, Mr. Yormark and the Panthers are going to need 5 votes from you and your fellow 8 commissioners, 5 out of 9, to get some kind of relief. It may not be however much you're asking for, $8, $10, $12 million a year. Do you think that there is some inclination? I mean, I saw Mayor Sharif quoted as saying after the TDC meeting, yeah, maybe we can come up with maybe $4 million a year.
Well, I don't speak for all of the commissioners. I'm just one of 9. But in my view, it is possible, if we're going to make a concession, which basically is lowering the rent from $4.5 million to some lower number, then there needs to be a corresponding change, in my view, with regard to the sharing of profits. We haven't been able to share profits in the past, although that's in the agreement, so it was, in my opinion, clearly viewed by the past commission that this would be a success for Broward County. But if we change those profit margins and we get a commitment from the owner that the Panthers will stay in South Florida, and we get a commitment, an ironclad commitment with regard to the payroll and the increase to make them competitive. In fact, I mean, if the Panthers were to go deep into the playoffs, I think that that would bring a lot better image for the Panthers than the owner making a few $1 million, and I think that's his higher priority.
Yeah, well, the Miami Heat didn't always fill the AAA until they got a super team, and now they do. And I should point out also, I think once in about 14 years has the Miami Heat actually paid Miami-Dade County anything from profits.
That's
and so, you know, it is a tough business. In about a minute or so, I'm sorry that we're running out of time. Tell me about this land swap, which is part of what you are proposing. You want to take 12 acres, which are you have the right to develop on one side of the arena, and you want to swap for 22 acres. You want to build a big hotel and casino?
Well, actually, the 12.5 acres that we did have the right as part of our operating agreement to develop has been given back to Broward County, and now currently holds a bus shelter for commuters that are taking mass transit into Fort Lauderdale. So that 12 acres really does not exist. When we sat down with staff and we started discussing this proposal about 8 months ago, they actually suggested that we consider committing to developing part of the land at the BB&T Center for the benefit of the county and all of its residents.
Michael, I am sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off. We'll come back, and at some point when the legislature is talking about casino gambling and perhaps a casino in Broward County, which is, I think, what you want to do, we'll continue the conversation. Tim Ryan, I'm sorry, we are out of time. Michael Yormark, thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
All right. Up next, then, uplifting story. Believe it or not, we do them once in a while. A special scholarship fund for dreamers, the children of undocumented immigrants. There was some very good news this week for 22 Miami Dreamers, the children of undocumented immigrants. Those Dreamers do not qualify for federal student loans, and they've struggled to pay for college. But a new foundation has stepped forward to provide scholarships for Dreamer scholars.
My name is Federico Paseiro, and I am a Dreamer, sir.
Federico, who was brought to Miami from Argentina at age 7, is one of 22 Dreamers now attending Miami-Dade College, thanks to scholarships from the Dream.us.
We believe every student in America deserves the chance to go on, and we think it'll be good for the Dreamers if they get a chance to go on, but we think it'll also be really good for the country.
It's certainly good for Alicia Mendez Salcedo of Homestead, who was born in Mexico.
This scholarship is just going to change my life and my family, and so I'm very, very happy.
The 22 Miami-Dade students are among 39 nationwide who will receive up to $12,500 to work toward an associate's degree, up to $25,000 to get a bachelor's.
The founders and supporters of the Dream US, the Scholarship Fund, have made it clear that they are not waiting for Washington to act.
The founders include Donald Graham, chairman of Graham Holdings, which owns WPLG, former Treasury Secretary Carlos Gutierrez of Miami, and San Antonio businessman Henry Munoz. They wrote checks along with the Gates Foundation, and that money is making a big difference in these young lives.
I've gone from being in a state where I didn't know where to go after high school to being in this position where I can now go to college, I can work, I can drive my car freely. It's a complete turnaround.
The debate over immigration reform and what to do with Dreamers has brought out the worst in human nature, but today, with the 22 scholarships and the creation of the Dream.us, it brought out the best.
We had a student speaker at Washington last week who had been a janitor for 3 years but wanted to be a pediatrician. And I think the country will be better off if she gets a chance to care for kids rather than clean floors.
Miami-Dade College is one of a small number of Florida schools that provides undocumented immigrants with in-state tuition, and there is a move now in the state legislature to do the same at all state universities. All right, up next we will open your mail. Let's dip into the mailbag now. We got quite a bit about our interview here last week with Representative Ileana Ros-Lehtinen. Mill Lyon had this to say to the Congresswoman: "Give me a break. You actually think we have the right and audacity to have an embargo on every country that does not have equal human rights, free elections, and democracy? That would mean more than half the world." We welcome your comments about any topic in the news. Send them to TWISF@local10.com. Right the old-fashioned way. Reach me on Facebook. All right, still to come, my personal perspective about what struck me as a wildly excessive police security detail for Vice President Joe Biden. Before we leave you this morning, a personal perspective about guarding the president and vice president. This is what it looked like Wednesday when Vice President Biden arrived at a fundraising event in Coral Gables. I was there, and the line of motorcycle cops just went on and on and on. There must have been 100 of them. In addition, there were, of course, police cars from several agencies and the requisite black SUVs driven by the Secret Service. They're in charge of security for these affairs. When I asked the special agent in charge if all this manpower was excessive, she said, absolutely not. Standard, the usual. Well, look, I've covered dozens of presidential visits. This one topped all the others because all the vice president had to do was fly in to raise money for a congressional candidate. And to justify the cost, as you see here, he made a brief stop en route to talk with some folks about the Affordable Care Act. There is no question the president and vice president need the best protection money can buy. But I'd say a lot of money was wasted on security during Biden's visit. He didn't need all those cops. You think he could have gotten by with, say, 50? Yeah, I think so, too. In the greater scheme of things, this is not a big deal, but for a country that has a huge budget deficit, it just ticks me off to see such a waste of money and personnel. Those cops could have been out arresting bad guys. That's my perspective for this week. I hope you have a wonderful Sunday. And remember, as always, stay informed, get involved. I'm Michael Putney.